Hi, this is Yorick. Yorick completed our certificate course in 2025. So, Yorick, I'll let you introduce yourself, please.
Hello, my name is Yorick. I am officially the head brewer of Arran Brewery, although that sounds fancier than reality because I'm the only brewer, but I'm head of one. I've been working at Arran Brewery now for, is it 6 years? 5 or 6 years. I've been head brewer basically since I came back from Brewlab with all my new knowledge, and I could tell everyone what to do and how I was the best brewer ever, and that's what we've been going on.
So yeah, maybe we can retrace your steps a little bit. Pre-brew lab, what led you to signing up, basically?
Well, initially, I was never supposed to be a brewer. I was supposed to be in charge of our shop and handling all of that. But we found that we had a lot of production issues. We weren't getting very good yields. And basically, I've got a massive ego, and I said I can do this better myself, and sort of stepped in, learned brewing on the job, on our equipment, and then realized, well, I could brew. I didn't really know what I was doing. I understand the basics, but if something went wrong, I'd have no idea. And I also wanted, being that I'm a big bossy, egotistical maniac, the ability to tell people that they were doing it wrong and go and complain. So we ended up at Brewlab. Basically, our big boss Gerald, he'd done a course with Brewlab a long time ago when they were still at the university, and he talked about how great they are. Brewlab also has done our stores our yeast for us and does other services, so we knew they were good. So we signed up for a 3 week course. And from there, it's that's the rest of the story. Basically, we've learned all about brewing, and it's been a great help.
So maybe you could tell us a bit about your time at Brew Lab, what you did, any particular brews that you had in mind, or things that you really kind of found valuable.
The big thing I found valuable for me was it's a 3 week course, but the first week of the course was really really valuable. Just going behind the theory in brewing. As I say, I knew practically how to brew. It's once you've done it a few times, the practicality of it is quite simple, but the figuring out what is actually happening was great. So recipe formulation and all that sort of stuff was really really interesting for me. The mathematics, I've always been a mathematical sort of academic based person, so understanding it was really helpful. So that when I got back, I could put that straight into practice. And also, what I really found interesting was my we were allowed to do two brews on the brew lab course. I was a bit cheeky and did three, but that was again because I was a bit more experienced than the other people, so I could do two brews in one day. It allowed me to experiment with recipes that I would normally do in our brewery with a different kit, with a different yeast, and see how it affected it with, which is normally something I don't have the ability to do because our brewery is it's 18 barrels, although these days we get 3,000 liters, so a little bit more than 18 barrels. So it's not something I can really experiment on easily. So it was really nice to experiment, see, if how much our water makes a difference, how much equipment makes a difference, and it gave me that opportunity. And basically to have someone watch over me and say, make sure I'm doing things properly. I've always, when I've carried on brewing, it's quite easy, especially when you're brewing a similar beer over and over every week, which is a lot of my brewing. It's quite easy to get lazy. And I've always in my head got Phil, who was the teacher at the time, in the back of my head, watching over my shoulder, so that I can't be lazy. Because I felt that when I was on the course. Hey, Yorick, pay attention, do what you're doing. So it's helped me sort of stay focused. But that first week was really useful, as I say, and also going through those. The last 2 weeks are a little bit more about packaging and other things, and just having a little bit of experience, a little bit of knowledge, so that when I've had to come up those in my brewing career, I might not know, exactly what to do, but I've got that base knowledge and I can figure out, oh, this is how things work. So it was very, very useful for me. Was that 3 week course?
Excellent. So I think you've kind of answered my next question. I was going to say we are kind of we put a real focus on practical brewing
Yeah.
to get all that theory applied. So I think you've covered that. What were the brews that you actually did on the course?
So the first brew I did was what was it? It was an imperial coffee stout, which is something I'd wanted to do on our kit, but it's quite a big investment to do an imperial stout. And to be honest, it probably would have been cleverer in terms of my brewing knowledge to do it as a later brew because it was quite a difficult recipe. But because it was intended to be such a high alcohol beer, I did it first so it had time to ferment. And then when I was being cheeky and I was feeling overconfident, and I said to Phil, "Can I do two brews for my second brew day?" I did a replica of our number one beer, the Arran Blonde, as I say that just to see how it was different on our equipment. And then I did a red ale with low IBU. I'm personally someone who doesn't like the bitterness in beers. I prefer a sweeter beer. So I tried to make a beer that had very low bitterness in it, and it basically showed me that even if you like a sweeter beer, it was quite a lacking in flavour. It needed that bitterness, and that was for me a great lesson that I've taken going forward whenever I formulated new recipes or tweaked the ones we've got. Is I might not like bitterness, but you do need it in there. It was very important, a lesson I got from that.
And flowing from the brew days were the QC modules and elements. Have you applied those skills?
I've definitely, yeah. We've found that since I've come back that we've had very, very high quality
Excellent.
beer since then.
Good to hear.
A lot of it ended up not being quite as relevant as we'd liked it because we'd stopped bottling. Basically, when I came back, we changed the way we now brew and then bottle off site. But having all that knowledge, as I say, we like a lot of breweries, occasionally you had inconsistency with cask beer. You know, they'd get fizzy, they'd explode, blah blah blah. But basically, since I've been to Brewlab and I've taken over all the brewing, we've not had a single issue with our cask. You know, touch wood. Obviously, I don't want
Yes.
to be too cocky. Our quality control has really improved. It's quite a dramatic increase just since having all that knowledge.
Excellent. Do you have a due diligence package with the laboratory here?
Not at the moment. We were funny enough. I got an email from Sarah this morning asking if we want to do the 6 month one, and it would have been yes because we were looking into it. But as I was mentioning to Richard before this meeting started, my boiler's just blown up, so we're a little bit. We're not sure when production will kick in again, so we're going to put it off until the next 6 month window.
Perfect.
Because it'll be a bit. What we have had done with Brewlab is we've had alcohol checks, ABV checks, which is actually coming very, very useful, surprisingly, straight away because we did our ABV checks as part of our audit. We're part of the CBRA audit at the moment, and we just sent away a random selection of beers just to make sure we were, everything was in spec, and thankfully it was. Boost to my ego again. But actually, very recently we've just got a letter from the local council who took the same beer away, did their own sample, and it was wildly out of spec. But because we have these results from Brewlab, we can go back and say, we think something's gone wrong in your laboratory because there's no way that it could be this out of spec, and we've got the evidence to back it up. So it's been a very good thing to have done.
Excellent.
It's quite a good coincidence, but yeah, it was a 4.3% beer, and their test said 5.1, which we think they've got their beers mixed up because it would be impossible. Now again, with the Brewlab knowledge, I can work out how much sugar I had. You wouldn't be able to get a 5.1% beer from that sugar. So that was really useful to also have this evidence from Brewlab saying, look, let's go and have a look at that again, and we think something might be wrong there with your test, which is what due diligence is for, I suppose. It's so you've got the evidence to show that you're doing your due diligence.
Good to hear. Very, very reassuring. Maybe we've kind of flowed into it, but I guess following the course, did you feel ready and sort of confident to progress? What your plans were before the course?
Yeah, I really did, to be honest. As I say, after that first week, my overinflated ego was great. I was like, I know exactly what I'm doing. I can't wait to get back and just take over. And basically, that's what we did. I went back, annoyed the big boss, who in his mind had a lot more experience and knowledge, and we had lots of arguments about how no, this is not. We're doing this wrong, and he's got all this experience. And I was like, well, I've just been on a course until obviously. Thanks to Brewlab, I was proved right quite a lot of the time.
Good.
So yeah, I went back and we actually made some big changes straight away. We increased an average before I sort of took over. We were getting our brew length was about 2,700 litres. But with the knowledge that we had now, I get an average of 3,050 litres, which obviously that's an extra, 500 bottles roughly, give or take a few more maybe. But for us, because now, especially because we're bottling off site, we send our beer away in 1,000 litres. So that extra, 350 litres is actually an extra bottling's worth from every brew, which was really, really useful. And that was basically because we could go in with the confidence from Brewlab and say, I know what we're doing, I know what's going wrong, and fix those things, basically.
That's really good to hear. So maybe you could tell us about Arran Brewery now, your roles. As you say, you're the head brewer, but what do you get up to?
Well, despite our relatively large brew length and how much beer we produce, we're a very, very small team. It's me and my partner Veronica. We are the brewery at the moment. Being on the Isle of Arran, we're primarily a tourism-based brewery. So most of our, where we sell our beer and where we make our hopefully profit is by selling it directly on the island. But we also provide Arran Blonde, our number one beer, to every supermarket, or near enough every supermarket in Scotland. So that's where most of our production goes. The brewery itself is now 26 years old, and it's starting to show the cracks in the building and things like that. And we were originally sort of up and coming, a bit like Brewdogger was originally, punk new craft brewery. Whereas now we find ourselves part of the old guard. There's not many breweries that have lasted this long these days, so we're an old-fashioned brewery now, but that suits us quite nicely. And we're doing our best. As I say, we've got a broken boiler at the moment, so everyone's a little bit depressed. But if we can solve that, it should be good for the good going through a while. Obviously, the industry's a bit delicate at the moment, but
Overcoming the challenges of getting ingredients over to the
yeah,
aisle.
it's not too bad at really getting the ingredients because we because of our size and because of our location, we've one of the big investments that was made about 10 years ago was silos. So it's actually to make us more resilient. So when we get our grain, we get 20 tons at a time. We could actually got 60 tons worth of storage. So if we really wanted to, we could have 60 tons. But 20 tons does us for a good while, basically. So we don't do too bad. And hops, because hops are, well, we all know are very expensive, are actually quite small. So a pallet of hops does us for a good 6 months. So it's not too bad with the ingredients, getting them on. Getting the beer off the island is more difficult, but that's more of a unique challenge for island-based breweries than a general brewing thing.
Always overcoming challenges, huh?
Absolutely.
Next question would be any kind of tips for anyone considering getting in the industry? I suppose anyone considering a career in the brewing industry, what would you say? Would you?
For me, the big thing about brewing is experience. Do a little, for instance, if you want to do a small course with Brewlab just to get that base knowledge. As I say, for me, the most useful part was understanding recipe formulation, which Brewlab did a really good job of teaching me. Once you get your idea of recipe formulation, and then just practice, then you'll get yourself a confident brewer. At least for me, I'm a brewer who does it based on vibes, is the way I would describe it. I don't. I think I work it on my experience. I know this. If I do change this, something will happen. I do little bit by bit. So that's a great way to get your brewing experience in. To get in the industry, it's again not the best time for the industry at the moment. But it's I think the best thing is just to practice yourself. If you can do a little bit of home brewing and then get good results, and then you can maybe go to bruisers. Depending on your location, there's lots of, especially for us in the Highlands and Islands, there's lots of jobs for brewers and not many brewers around. So it's just get yourself out there, get some experience, show enthusiasm. For me, I got into the industry not directly as a brewer. I got into the industry as someone who sold the beer in the shop, and then from there gained some experience and moved into the brewing when it was possible. So that's what I would recommend personally. Just find your way into the industry, meet people. It's a very social industry as brewing. There's not really many secrets, so meeting people, chatting to people, that's for me the best way to get into the industry.
Good stuff, yeah. And last question, would you recommend Brewlab?
I would, yes, absolutely. As I say, it's I learned a lot from Brewlab. I remember at the beginning, Phil said at the course, when you leave here with your certificate or whatever, you're not just chucked out of the door. You are part of the Brewlab family, and genuinely, I have felt like that. I've reached out to Phil and Alison about issues in the past to help me out, and they've always got back and done things for me very nicely. So it does genuinely feel like an extended family. From you can reach out for Brewlab when you need help. So I would genuinely recommend Brewlab to anyone who needs a good bit of teaching about brewing.
Lovely to hear. Thanks for your time, Yorick.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Richard.